Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be sharing my birth story with you guys, and of course I'm going to be doing my makeup while talking about it, so let's get started. This one's going to kind of be a long one, so sit tight, grab some popcorn, grab your makeup, do it with me, whatever you feel like. On August 17th, I went into the doctor's. Now I had to go once a week for almost my entire pregnancy because I was high risk, and on August 17th, I went in for my weekly appointment to go see my high-risk doctor. That day when I walked in, I kind of just had this feeling like the whole pregnancy, every time I went to the doctor, something went wrong. But this time, I just felt that they were going to tell me something that I didn't like or I didn't want to hear. I had just told myself to keep my hopes up and maybe this time, because normally I expect bad news, that maybe this time it wouldn't be bad news. So I kept my hopes up, and then I went in to go see my high-risk doctor. And before I see them, I see an ultrasound tech every time, and I do dates and growths. If you don't know what that is, it's like a 45-minute to an hour ultrasound, and they measure everything on the baby. And I was high risk due to a couple reasons. One, if you guys haven't watched already my birth control almost killed me story, I have a blood clotting disorder thanks to birth control. So I had that issue while I was pregnant because it just kind of comes back around when your body creates a bunch of estrogen. So I was on blood thinner injections. I was on the ones called Levinox, and then I also had gestational diabetes, which is very common if you have PCOS to get gestational diabetes. So I was kind of doomed to get it, but I was really hoping that I wouldn't have. Now, pretty much every single time that I went in there, I had the same ultrasound tech, and her and I, we chit-chatted, and she was always in a good mood. And this day, she just was kind of acting funny. And I thought nothing of it because she's like, your baby still looks beautiful, whatever. But then she was still kind of acting funny. So I kind of just was like, okay, maybe nothing's wrong. And she's like, okay, the doctor will be in a couple minutes. So with my gestational diabetes, I had to poke my finger, of course, after all my meals during the morning. And I could not get my morning fasting down ever. I was also on metformin while I was pregnant. And for some reason, no matter how I adjusted my meds, whatever I tried, I changed my diet completely. I could not get my morning fastings down. And so then my high-risk doctor came in, and normally he comes in very happy, and he came in extremely with a worried look on his face, and he explained to me that since we can't get my morning fasting down, and there was some fluid loss, of course, because I was towards the end of my pregnancy anyway, that he was going to tell my normal OB to go ahead and take the baby. Now, when he told me this, it really didn't process in my brain exactly what he was saying. I was like, take the baby. What do you mean? And then he said, I'm gonna go call her. I want you to head over into her office. And so I'm walking towards the lobby to go to the other half of the OB office, and as I'm walking to the door of the lobby, I'm like, he wants me to give birth today. That can't happen. I was set to graduate from cosmetology school that Saturday, and I was not ready at all. I mean, you're never ready to have your baby, but I was not ready. And so I walked up to the front desk, and I'm like, I need to go see my regular OB. And she's like, you don't have an appointment. And I'm like, I'm supposed to have an appointment. And first of all, I was like, well, I need to see her. And she's like, well, I don't have one. And I was like, I need to see her. And she was like, okay, I will get you in there right away. I will just call back there and we can adjust some things. And I'm like, okay, thank God, because I'm panicking right now. And as I'm sitting in the lobby waiting to be called back, I'm going through a panic attack. I'm I don't even know what to do. I couldn't even force myself to call anyone because I knew I would just start hysterically crying. And then as soon as I got back to the room, I did start hysterically crying. And I called my mom, and I called Nick, and I'm like, they want to take the baby today. They were both panicking. I was panicking, so it was not working out in my favor. And the only thing that's really going through my mind is I'm supposed to graduate on Saturday. My goal was to graduate, then have this baby, and to finish school for this baby. So that was what was going through my brain. And so my doctor came in, and I was crying. She's like, whoa, what's wrong? And I told her, because she hadn't even heard what the high-risk doctor had said yet. And so she's like, well, let me do my own assessment, and then I'm going to go talk to him, and we'll see what we can figure out. Because I explained the whole deal, I have to be at school this many hours in order to graduate this day, otherwise I can't. She did her own assessment. She's like, there's not a ton of fluid, but I mean, you're getting close to the end, whatnot. And so she went and she talked to the high-risk doctor, and they decided that as long as I promised to come back in that Thursday and get another assessment done and make sure everything's going well, then we would be fine and we could wait until after I graduated. The Thursday I went in and I did a stress test where they put the bands on your belly and then they like measure kicks, they measure the heart rate, things like that. And then she did do like a small little ultrasound. She did inform me that my placenta was in fact dying, and she made sure both on Monday and Thursday that I knew the risk of leaving the hospital, not going ahead and getting induced. Totally understood them. She supported every decision I ever made. I cannot thank my OB enough. She was incredible my entire pregnancy. I could not have not been depressed if it wasn't for her. Like, I mean, I don't depend on people to not be depressed, but like, she helped me see the good in everything of my pregnancy, even with all the bad happening. So then we kind of planned for my induction to be that Saturday once I was done with school. But she was gonna have her nurse set up the whole thing and call me later to actually like set up the induction. And so they called me and she actually met with my birth team, like everyone who was gonna be working. They discussed it. She talked to my high-risk OB and they all decided that it would be perfectly fine for me to go ahead and wait until Monday. That way my OB could be there and be the one to deliver my baby, which was super important to me because she had been such a rock for me my entire pregnancy. I really needed my OB to be there and not like a different doctor I didn't know, if that makes sense. Like, she was who I felt the most comfortable with. On August 24th, Nick and I woke up at the butt crack of dawn and we packed up the car and we headed to the hospital. Actually, we headed to McDonald's first because they told me to make sure to eat beforehand, so we went into McDonald's and we both got a big breakfast and we devoured that. My OB actually was also a midwife, which I really enjoyed that. I've had another like gynecologist and he was not like, didn't have the midwifery, and I've looked into midwifery and it's amazing. It truly is amazing. And so she was just all around super duper incredible. I love her. So my nurses got me all settled in and everything, and then my doctor came in and she kind of went through the plan that she had planned out for my induction. I decided to do the Foley balloons with me, which a lot of people say is painful. I didn't think it was that bad. Call me crazy, but I really did not think that it was that bad. It was uncomfortable, but the nurses were awesome and they got me into a position where I fell asleep actually. Now, if you don't know what Foley balloons are, it's like a catheter that goes up into your uterus, and there's like a balloon on the end of it that they fill up with saline, and then it like kind of manually dilates you over time. I'll say it was the worst part of my labor. It was not comfortable, but then again, once I got to a certain position, I literally fell asleep with them in. And then after a couple hours passed, the nurse came in and she had to wake me up because she's like, we gotta wake up and we gotta tug on them, because they tug on them to kind of pull them out a little bit more to help you dilate, and they just flew out. Like, literally, she tugged on them and they went whoop. And so then I was dilated to like 5 or 6, I believe. And so then we just worked on putting me into different positions to kind of help her move downwards. And we did so many different ones, and I just kept kind of falling asleep. And then my doctor, obviously, she kept coming in and checking on me. And then she came in again. Every time she came in, she's like, you're gonna want to get the epidural, you're gonna want to get it. And I was like, no, I'm fine right now. And then I believe I got to a 7, and she's like, if you're getting the epidural, you need to get it now. And so I waited just a tad bit longer, and then I went ahead and I got the epidural, and that freaking thing, my epidural worked so good. I was still able to like move my legs, but I couldn't feel anything. It was, honestly, I was living the life with that epidural. So again, I took another nap, and then the nurses woke me up again, and they're like, let's move positions a little bit and let's kind of get her moving down a little bit. Like, I just kept falling asleep in the different positions that they would put me in. I believe that I slept for like 12 out of this, I think it was like 16 hours that I was in labor. I slept for like more than half of my labor, and I finally got to a 10, but they were like, we want to wait till you're crowning a little bit more, and it's like really time, but your body will tell us when it's time to push. And at that point, I was really just like super over it. Like, I wasn't in pain or anything, but I was tired and I wanted it to be over with. So I looked at the nurse. I'm like, I want to push. I just want to start pushing. And she was like, are you sure? We should probably wait just a little bit longer. And I'm like, no more waiting longer. I want to push right now. And she was like, okay, well, we'll start. So she just sat in there and pushed with me for a little bit because she knew I wasn't going to get anywhere. So she sat with me and I pushed for a while. And then my doctor came in and we did some more pushing with her. And then finally, after 2 hours of pushing, it was go time. And Denver did, and so I pushed like all holy hell because I was so over it. And I mean, I couldn't even feel anything, so I didn't even know if I was pushing right, but they told me I was doing a fantabulous job. I never once remember complaining. Denver she like kept turning, so it kind of made it a little bit more difficult for me. She did not want to just stay put. She kept turning her head, so it became more difficult. And then she did get stuck in my pelvic bone, and so that was like, oh, holy hell, pushing her out of there. And I believe when she got stuck in my pelvic bone is when I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna push with every single thing in me. Like, I feel like I've been pushing like that this entire time, but I don't know. I started screaming so I could push harder. And they're like, stop screaming. I'm like, no, it's helping me. I'm going to scream. And so I literally was like, my epidural works so good. I was still pushing and they're like, Alexa, she's here. Open your eyes. And I'm still like pushing. And I'm like, ah. And then they laid her on my chest. And I will never forget that moment. And I literally turned and looked at Nick and said I wanted to do it again. And I think in that moment he realized he picked the craziest bitch to spend the rest of his life with. But it was just such a good moment. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I know some people always tell me, they're like, yeah, but you had the epidural. Imagine not having the epidural. But like, I had the epidural, so it was a dream. It was awesome. Now, giving birth in a pandemic, we didn't have to wear masks when we were in our room, but if we were to leave to walk around or go to our car, we had to. I did tear quite a bit, but not like an extensive amount. Healing went really well for me. I didn't even stay a full 24 hours in the hospital after she was born. We got to go home early. Everything was looking really good, so we just went home and got to be a family sooner. I gave birth at Methodist Women's, the Jenny Ed Center. The staff there is so incredible. Nurse Helen, if you ever happen to magically come across my video or someone showed it to you, shout out to you. You are the best nurse I've ever had. Like, my significant other still talks about you to this day, about how incredible you were. And my OB was amazing. Honestly, giving birth in a pandemic, I loved it. I mean, there was some appointments, a lot of appointments that I wish I could have had Nick with me or my mom with me, but I took it more as a growing experience because my pregnancy made me 1,000 times stronger doing it alone, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously I was allowed to have Nick in the room when I gave birth, but that was the other thing, being in the hospital. I loved it just being us and us getting to be a family for those couple of hours and no one being there to visit. It just made it really nice because every time that someone has a baby, I feel like they're just bombarded, and I always try to wait till they're home, but then by the time that they're home, they're like, I don't want anybody here. So like, it's hard, but I don't think I will ever have visitors at the hospital with the future baby. And the zit in the corner of my lip. But yeah, overall, I really did not mind giving birth in a pandemic, even though it was my first baby. Some people did take it a little bit harder, but if you're one of those people, just think about the fact that it made you 1,000 times stronger. Yeah. So, yeah, so that is the end of this video. I hope that you guys really enjoyed my birth story. I can't wait to have more babies. Nick thinks I'm crazy. I think I'm going to insert some pictures from that day after this to kind of close out the video. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye guys.